Hi, and welcome to the Sheroes Collective podcast. I'm your host, Renee Sparks, and today's Shero is an amazing person. I know I say this every single week, but it is the truth. The person we are meeting today is Jane Jafta. She's a motivational speaker, an author, a radio presenter, a talk show host of Minutes with Jane, and a singer. Now, I mean, how many more talents could you possibly have, right? But she's also a TikToker. I'm going to add that. So as much as she uses all of the connections between radio presenting and talk show host, she also then places those on TikTok. And I think that's kind of where I've seen you. So welcome, Jane.
Thank you for having me, Renee. Thank you.
Yeah, it's fantastic that you could make
time.
Thanks. So yeah, I'm going to just jump right into it. So Jane, you are finding yourself within the media space. Can you tell me how this journey started?
Oh, I have to go back like 12 years. 12 or 13 years ago, it all started with Radio CCFM. I was just sharing my story. That is why you will hear that I have a book. And I shared my story on CCFM, and from there onwards, they just wanted me to come back for more, and every presenter wanted me. Then later on, I did slots for them, and then I went to Radio Tigerberg, also sharing my story, and did some stuff there. And so I just hopped from one radio station to another, and but gained my experience most probably at CCFM. I must say that is where I actually got the training and the insight as to being a radio presenter as well. So it was a very interesting journey since then. Became more interesting as you get molded over time.
Yeah.
And on your journey, you get molded so many times, and you know what I'm talking about. Those storms that comes and those challenges that comes, it molds you into the person that you are right now. So I've been molded many times on the journey. So I'm grateful for where I'm coming from. And apart from the radio side, there's also TV that I didn't tell you that. I wanted to leave that as a surprise. So I had this also Minutes with Jane as a TV slot for Cape Town TV, where I also interviewed people, and allowed them to share their stories. So media for me, it's just a very big and massive and powerful tool to use, especially nowadays. I don't think people are glued to the screens on TV as much as they're glued to their phones nowadays. So everything is online. So yeah, don't let me go too much off
No, I'm loving
track.
it. I'm loving it. Thank you for that. I found it very interesting. So you talk about 12 years. So what were you doing before that, out of interest?
Before that, I was a married woman with 2 kids and worked in the bank, FNB, First National Bank. I was a consultant for them and also preacher. And yeah, I preached. The podium I'm no stranger to the podium when it comes to speaking or preaching. That is what I think that is where everything started for me, really, with preaching. Um, and that's where people found me, basically, because I came out. So yeah,
that's amazing.
Mom of two.
So this is exactly it, right? We every single person I'm engaging with, it's about the story that's not you didn't come to where you are because it was easy. And then I think you've also touched on that, being molded and being kind of pushed and shaped into this. And also it's a continuous process. So I think that's amazing. So to anyone who's listening and who's thinking about what am I going to do with my life, just look at that. I mean, I didn't wake up one morning and decide to do a podcast. I was kind of pushed into it as well. So I get what you're saying. But I also just want to go back to your book. So you have a book that you've written. You said to me earlier that it's being revised. Take us through what kind of inspired that book, and how did what is kind of making you want to revisit it now?
I won't say I'm revisiting the book. My story has been told many times. The book is just basically telling the whole story that I can't always share, and it can travel places that I can't go.
Okay.
It can reach people that I can't reach. So my book is called Never Quit, Never Give Up, My Story. And the story is about me being a rape victim, being sexually assaulted twice. Through the first assault, I became pregnant. While I was pregnant, I was hijacked and assaulted by the hijackers. And yeah, I tell my story in the book, and I'm just going to give you a brief. Um, and I shared also, where I was also a survivor of cancer, diagnosed. And everything happened in the same period of time, and I was diagnosed with cancer um, after I gave birth. Yeah, a lot of things happened, and then the second rape. It was not something that I used to talk about very easily because it was something that I suppressed a lot. In the book, I do describe every single detail, every smell, every feeling, every emotion that I felt, with the second assault. Because I feel that one for me, it was something that I've blocked out all my life. And when I started writing my book, it surfaced.
Yeah.
I also write in the book how I ended up in a mental hospital because I lost my mind.
Wow.
And I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and major depression disorder, which is MDD. And I ended up in a ward that I did not thought that I would ever end up going crazy, I would say. But like I said, everything for me was a journey, and my journey, I believe, I have purpose. Also in my book, I write about how people people can affect your life, how people can also destroy your life, how I was crucified by the church,
Wow.
for becoming pregnant, people judging you and not knowing the whole story and not knowing the truth, and just assume and making assumptions, and I share it in the book. And that is what my whole that is just a nutshell version of Never Quit, Never Give Up, My Story. And the reason why I'm re-editing it, when I wrote that book, I wrote it as raw as, I don't know how to put it. It was so raw. I just, because God spoke to me and He said, through this book, your healing will come. And when I started writing, I promise you, there were times when I just left chapters because I didn't want to go there, because remember, when you write, you're reliving
Yeah.
every single moment again and again and again. And I did not want it. And there were times when I cried and I didn't write for a week or two. And then I got back on it. And it is very raw when I wrote it. And I felt like I want to re-edit it so that I can reintroduce it
Yeah.
to the public and hopefully impact some lives again. Well, I am impacting lives now, but I mean,
Definitely.
places, like I said earlier, the book can go places where I can't
Yeah.
go. So yeah, that
I
is
think,
that is what my
thank
book
you
is
so
about.
much for sharing that. I think it's amazing that you could use the media in so many variations for your own healing, but also to be instrumental in other people's healing journey. I mean, you don't know who picks up that book and what they're going through, or
Mm.
listening to your TikTok. I know you've done something on rape as well. So I mean, 16 days of activism is coming, and we were actually just having a conversation last night. A few of us, we are health equity activists, and we were all speaking about how exhausted we are that it's 16 days of activism, when actually we know that there was last year the campaign around 365 and trying to say, look, we should be championing against GBV every single day. And we know this. But it's very interesting now that, we're having this conversation and you're bringing out other elements of how you champion and show up every day. So even within your TikToks, you're having really, really instrumental conversations with men, with women, with everyone. And I think that is also important. I think very often we leave them out of the conversation, or we simply just make them the villain in the story, and so therefore they only appear in one way. So I think it's quite useful to see how you've used social media, the book, and even your platforms in terms of presenting and ministry, right? Because I can see that this is what I actually wanted to ask you. How do you go about selecting the conversations that you have on TikTok? And then how do you embed some of, I can see you're deeply spiritual. How do you embed that bit of yourself into these conversations?
Um, when I started the TikTok platform, that was 5 or 6 months ago, when I was just not interested in doing the whole live thing. I was mostly on other people's lives. And then, one day God said to me, "It's time for you to do minutes with Jen." I'm like, "No, I'm on this platform." And I tried it, and I was so scared and nervous, and I just, nah. But then I kept on going, and I believe that when God instructs you to do something, there's always a purpose, there's always a plan. I don't, this is what the instruction came with, is like, this is not a faith-based not a religious platform, but it's faith-based. I acknowledge every single person's religion on the platform. So we speak about God, and sometimes I have to pray. There are times that it happens. I don't want to do it, but it happens when he says you need to pray now because somebody needs it. And I just want to be obedient. And that is what this whole platform for me. And I think people got to know me like that on TikTok as well. It's not your normal lives. It's not your normal talks. I don't do normal. I like to do abnormal. You can try and copy me, but you will never be me.
Yeah.
Because this instruction comes from above. So when it comes to talking about the different topics, people, and I'm now quickly going into that, using the different topics that I do have, and I know you saw, I don't post much on my TikTok regarding the different topics. There's a reason for it. People are always asking me, "Jane, how do you get these topics?" And I promise you, Renee, sometimes I get topics a minute before I go live.
Oh, wow.
I have a list. Don't get me wrong. I have a list of topics because my topics comes from conversations that I have with people, from where I walk in the mall and I see something or I hear something, and I write it down, because for me that is reality, and that is interesting, and I want us to discuss it. And people would normally ask me, "How do you get these topics?" Well, it just comes. If you and I have a conversation, you say, "Oh, my husband hit me tonight," that would be my topic, GBV. I'm just making an example.
Yeah.
And then what I've discovered was a lot of people, it has impacted. Minutes with Jane has truly impacted so many lives on TikTok in such a short period of time. I did not know until people started DMing me, and I got messages, and others was like, "Jane, that when I'm not live, they were like, 'When are you going to go live?' It's like waiting for Seven the line. But yeah, for me, the most important part is I can never not acknowledge the fact that I'm a woman of God. They know that. I'm not going to sit there and say, "Oh, Rabasika, ba, 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 ba," whatever they do. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to speak in tongues. I'm just going to talk because it's a talk show. But I do acknowledge who my God is. That is what I do.
No, that was clear from I think the onset. I mean, I've jumped on and off some of your live sessions just to see, and it's quite inclusive. I've seen that it's not just Jane having a conversation; it's multiple people's voices being heard by others, and that's quite powerful. So that shows you, I mean, the fact that you're saying people are sending you messages asking where you are, that is already, quite indicative of the fact that you're doing something that people need. So yeah, I think when it comes to the media and people within the media space or comm spaces, there's such a huge responsibility. I mean, I looked at, there's been a few people who've come on and who've not been true, right? People have been following them, and it's been a whole charade, really. People have been like, "What? Who is this? Why have we been listening to these people?" And so people do look at those in the forefront and go, are you real? Is this, but I mean, there's just something about your platform and the sessions that I've been to that's like, this is who she is. You show up in as your true self. And I think that that is something that's really been very, very obvious. I think it stands out. So thank you for that. Thank you for being one of the people that you can kind of see, okay, yeah, she's going live. Let's hop on and hear what it's about. And even if it's just for a few minutes, you leave there with something. So to anyone who's thinking about how do I impact others, I think you need to sit and really tap into yourself and decide which platform and how you're going to do it. But I think there's so many variations. And what I like about what you've spoken about is the fact that you use so many of them, so many tools. So you're using many tools within advocacy, within communications to actually share your message, which is quite cool.
Just something that I want to add as well. Yes, all of that, what you're saying is the truth. The other thing that also, I mean, like, men don't talk much. But for some reason, this platform is giving a voice to the voiceless. And men came that said it. Jane, you gave us a voice. I never wanted to speak about where I come from. I never thought but you made it so comfortable. It's like you make me want to speak. And what I am only doing is I want to give you that voice. You have a voice. I give it to men and I give it to women. And some of the women that came onto the platform, they started their own lives,
Fantastic.
Now they've got that voice.
Yeah.
Now they can speak, And that for me, when I know that I've impacted one life through one life, then I know my purpose was reached.
That's fantastic. Oh my word. One life through one life. I like that. I like that. I think we don't often think of it like that. We always think about the masses that we are busy influencing or impacting or, forming part of their lives. But you're right. It is that one. I mean, coming from a health background, we constantly say this. We look at stats, but at the end of the day, it's what did you actually do for that individual? That one person that turned around in the clinic and said, thank you for what you've done today, that type of thing, versus everyone else in the queue, because not everyone's going to acknowledge you or feel the same way. But if we can each just take energy from that one person or from that one experience, it makes a huge difference. Anyway, so we've spoken about your book. We've spoken about the fact that you're on TikTok. You've got Minutes with Jane. Do you see yourself doing anything? Oh, and you've had the TV show. Oh my word. So where else could Jane possibly go in the next few years? Or is that left to divine intervention?
What I want to do is I'm just enjoying the ride that I've now. I'm just enjoying the journey. Last night I was in prayer and I was like saying, Lord, wherever you take me, take me. That's it. I want to go bigger though next year, and I don't want to disclose too much.
Yeah. No.
There are things in the pipeline. There are things in the pipeline, but we keep it under wraps for now. But it's going to be big. That I promise you.
Okay.
And that is what I'm praying for bigger. It's not because I want to become well known or famous or whatever. For me, it's about impacting lives, change and save lives. That's basically what I stand for.
It's interesting that you say what you're saying now. So all of the Sheroes that I've had a discussion with thus far have all had the same sentiment. Some of them were even like, why am I on here? I'm not about talking about myself, that type of thing. But it's interesting because they are all kind of pushed. And whether you are thinking about a higher power, there's a calling that's saying, I can't just sit in a corner and have this conversation with 5 people. I need a different platform. I need to kind of keep pushing. I mean, many of them have even said, I don't even want to be the face behind this, but I'm here, So I hear you. It's very interesting. It's as if there's constantly this thing that pushes you to say, I am on a healing journey, because we are all on healing journeys. I think we don't acknowledge it enough. I love the fact that you spoke about mental health. Again, it's something that's taboo. It's something that we don't speak about. We don't speak about just how fine the line between mental health and mental illness is, and that actually we are all on that line, and at some point we step over. So it's really fantastic that people are speaking about it. My mom was a psychiatric nurse for 35 years. So I grew up having to know mental health and mental illness is a thing that exists, you know. So I think it's fantastic if we can have more people speak about it, speak about gender-based violence, and actually acknowledge that this is an issue, because we seem to be inundated by all these streams of media that portrays it in a certain way that somehow we get exhausted, and we shouldn't be. So I love the fact that you're using it as a testimony of your own life, but then also how do we keep invigorating this in everyone else, kind of making it everyone's responsibility to take note of it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to come up with in the next year. I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
Watch this space.
We will. So Jane, as a last thing, is there any message that you have for people thinking about going into the media space, the comm space, social media space, that could just make their lives a little bit easier?
It's not easy. That I can promise you. You should know. It's not easy. If you're gonna give up, you will never know if you would have been successful, or if that you would have succeeded. The key or the secret is don't quit. Just keep on going. Even if you don't get 5 million, 10,000, 4,000, 100 people that comes and and watches you or liking your stuff, it's okay. It's okay, because the crowds will come. Somebody will tell somebody else. You just keep on going. That is what I do. I keep on going. I don't care how many people come to TikTok. I don't care how many people come and watch me. I'm actually surprised. Over 2,000 people views my lives a night, in and out. And for me, that is a big wow. So how did I do it? Consistency. If you're going to be inconsistent and you quit, you will never know if you would have succeeded. So the key is keep on going and stay consistent, and you will see, you will reap the fruits at the end of the day, as long as you don't quit on it.
Fantastic. That is great, a great tip. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for sharing your personal story and for even being willing to be part of this. The hope through the Sheroes Collective is that this platform just keeps growing, and it's about raising awareness around amazing people like yourself. So it's all about you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Renee.